A lot of these impulses that we get to scroll on TikTok or go and binge watch Netflix for hours come from avoiding these negative thoughts that come up in our minds. What we consume does have a way more lasting effect on us than we think. I feel like our generation spends a lot of time running away from pain, running away from how we're feeling right now. Because we live in a world that is so abundant and we have access to all of the resources imaginable, we have everything now that can distract us from any negative thoughts that we could be feeling. Recently, I became interested in the topics of dopamine and overconsumption and just exactly how it has shaped our generation. So I wanted to make a video sharing my perspective, my insights and experience. This is definitely not going to be a scientific video. If you're looking for that kind of approach, definitely check out something like Andrew Huberman. He has some pretty good scientific videos on this topic. So yes, this video is going to touch on addiction and actually managing addictive behaviors, which for me has always been this big, heavy, serious topic. But I feel like I really wanted to make this video because I feel like having conversations like these and sharing ideas about these topics will really help our younger generation who is growing up in these environments filled with so much just cheap dopamine. Also, what really pushed me to make this video was that I realized that addiction actually doesn't just have to deal with drugs and alcohol. It can be with things like social media addiction, food addiction. So basically anything that you actively do that you feel like you can't control and that you do instead of addressing these negative feelings that you're feeling is addiction. Here's the tricky thing about dopamine. Your brain has made a lot of these bad habits in your life seem like they're healthy, but in reality, these are bad habits that you don't have a lot of control over. And this is exactly what led me to delete TikTok earlier this year, because I truly felt like I had no control over it when I was endlessly scrolling. My mind would justify scrolling for hours with this simple notion that I was just learning new things. But when I went to read a book or to focus in on something, I felt like I couldn't focus at all. My mind was just wanting to go on to the next shiny thing. And chances are you've experienced something similar if you have spent a lot of time on these fast scrolling apps. And something that I've observed is actually a lot of these impulses that we get to scroll on TikTok or go and binge watch Netflix for hours come from avoiding these negative thoughts that come up in our minds. Negative thoughts will come up in our minds and we feel like we can't deal with them. So the best thing to do is to find something that will distract us. And guess what? In our world, there are so many distractions and so easily available too. You want to run away as far as possible from these feelings that you're feeling. And what makes social media addiction so particularly hard to manage is that it can be something really small like scrolling on YouTube that becomes addictive over time. And this endless scrolling has been labeled by Gen Z as doom scrolling, you're literally scrolling into your doom. And like I said, what's best now in our world is that there's an abundant assortment of all of these distractions that we can choose from. You have instant pleasure, instant gratification, even instant food, That's why I think this is a topic that more young people should talk about. And I want to start conversations amongst my peers. And I want to make it easier for younger people to develop healthier dopamine habits. Yes, we live in a world of overconsumption and cheap dopamine, but you don't have to be a part of this. You can choose a different path, and you can also help others around you. We all intuitively know that these things are bad for us. So really the only thing standing between you and developing a healthy relationship with dopamine is your own will and knowledge just put into practice. We can learn to accept these feelings by knowing that they are not us and becoming this observer of the mind, and I'll get into more of that later. But now let's break down what dopamine actually is and how does it work. And I'm going to break it down in a very, very simple and non-complicated way because I'm sick and tired of seeing all of these very complicated explanations of dopamine. So dopamine is a neurotransmitter. So basically this little messenger chemical that your body can't literally function without. Without dopamine, we literally wouldn't be able to survive because our bodies wouldn't know pain from pleasure. So that's really what it does. It tells your body the difference between pleasure and pain. And a great book that I recently listened to was Dopamine Nation by Anna Lemp. She illustrates the importance of dopamine using genetically engineered mice as an example. She says that genetically engineered mice unable to make dopamine will not seek out food and thus will starve to death. Even when food is placed just inches in front of their mouth. So yeah, dopamine itself isn't a bad thing. It's really just our relationship with it that has gotten worse over time. Like with all relationships, the best conditions for it to be in is in this balance. And yeah, also in the book, Anna talks about all of us having this like inner balancing scale with pain and pleasure on the other side. And basically when we experience too much of one or the other, our body does this thing where it tries to balance itself out. The problem with these quick and easy fixes of dopamine is that our pain and pleasure balancing scale that we have, it's working overtime to keep up with everything that we're consuming. Everything that we want to consume over and over again is triggered by past feelings of pleasure. Often I feel like we go back to like old TV shows and old movies to recreate that initial feeling of pleasure that we had when we first saw them, and we'll try to do this over and over again, but it just doesn't feel the same. And this kind of habit is also something natural and can actually be used to form good habits. For example, you found this new healthy recipe that makes you feel good and supplies your body with all the nutrients that it needs, so you feel motivated to make it over and over again, repeating those same, happy feelings. Understand that everything that you consume does have an impact on you. At first, knowing this, it might be a little bit scary, but it is the truth. And I really started to see this when I began meditating and I began observing my thoughts. This was such a strange experience, but it actually gave me insight into what goes on in my mind. I would be thinking about the last song I listened to or the last YouTube video I watched. It would all be kind of playing out in my mind over and over again. And sometimes if I watched something that triggered feelings of guilt or fear within me, I would also be just thinking about that and just ruminating on those thoughts. So yeah, I feel like what we consume does have a way more lasting effect on us than we think. However, knowing this, you can be motivated to change what you consume to healthier things, And I feel like truly when you're able to see how the things that you consume affect you, that's when you're like motivated to make that change. So yeah, subscribe to people who uplift you, who teach you something new, show you the different cultures all around the world, who inspire you. That's why I love YouTube so much as a platform, because it's a hub of free self-education and self-improvement, and you can really make it into this amazing and healthy place, and that's what I'm really striving to do in my life too. And I will put a list of some of my favorite YouTubers in the description, some that give me this like uplifting feeling, so check that out. You might think to yourself, for someone who says they had a social media addiction, you are on social media quite a lot. How does someone who puts themselves out there online deal with dopamine when their jobs are so closely related to the most addictive form of cheap dopamine, social media? I feel like there are so many amazing parts to being a content creator online. Personally, I love being able to take a simple idea from my mind into a full YouTube video. However, one thing that really drives a lot of people to pursue this career path is this instant gratification that comes along with it. You have people online who like and subscribe to this version of you that you're putting out online, and it can become addictive if you let it. And this goes for all sorts of work where you put yourself out there to be perceived. So yeah, something that has really helped me was becoming very intentional on what I was using my social media for. So for example, a big part of what I do comes from learning and research. So researching and seeing the different like trends that are going on in like self-improvement is helpful, but at the same time, it can be really addictive just to sit there and scroll through all of them. So I would make it intentional. I would set aside like 20 minutes for me to like do my research, and that would be it. So earlier in this video, I touched on the pain and pleasure balance. So I want to get into how you can actually reset your pain and pleasure balance, because I feel like there are some pretty cool and easy ways to do it. As I started to work on my mental health, I would go out on these silent walks in my local park. And this would consist of me literally going to the park, sometimes for hours, just no music, just being present with everything that was there. So all of the trees, all of the people, I would start noticing everything. And I had no idea at the time, but by doing this, I was actually resetting my pain and pleasure balance. Before this, my tolerance for pleasure was high and my tolerance for pain was almost non-existent. Like I said, the thing with dopamine in our generation right now is a lot of us want to just run away from the pain. And that's exactly what I was doing at the time. You know, I just wanted to do everything that would make me feel good. So yeah, my tolerance for pain was just not there. And yeah, I feel like at the time I was not able to accept or deal with my life the way it was. And I feel like that's what really led me to develop a social media addiction. However, what led me to develop this like random silent walking habit was actually other positive habits that I had been developing over the months before. So yeah, I was working on my self-confidence, which led me to realize that actually I do need to go for a walk every day for me to feel connected, for me to feel good. And that's what I like about developing these good and healthy habits. And honestly, I can go on and on about this. Like, I really feel like once you develop one, it's almost like a ripple effect. You know, like once I developed my self-confidence, I felt like I would believe in myself more. I had more courage. So it really like kind of works like a ripple. So yeah, maybe practice these walks for yourself, you know, maybe start off with just half of your walk completely silent, and then the other half you can put your earphones in. But I feel like this is something that I just kind of discovered on the way that I wanted to share with you, and maybe it will help. So yeah, I did this for like months, and I feel like over time, I truly felt like my natural focus and attention span just returned to me. You know, I was able to read my first book in years. You know, I was able to like focus in on something. So next I want to go into how can we actually develop better relationships with dopamine. So earlier on we established that it is something we need for survival, but our world is coming to a place where honestly, you know, it's not good the way that we deal with our problems by scrolling on social media, you know, not actually addressing them. So how do we actually develop a good relationship with dopamine? So the first thing, it's learning about dopamine and how it works. You know, just that insight alone will really like reshape how you think about it, I feel. Next is becoming conscious and noticing these negative feelings that you're feeling in the moment. And this one is not easy, let me tell you. I think it was honestly only a few days ago where I had like this first moment where I was able to be present for the feeling before the dopamine, which honestly was a first for me, because in my mind, this action that I was about to do, I had labeled it as something positive, you know, something that I just normally did when I didn't feel so great, you know. So I was able to be present for that feeling before, and I realized that actually I was feeling a lot of anxiety that I wasn't addressing, you know, and I was able to kind of listen to that feeling. And that's why I think that meditation is really good for that. You know, and all of these mental health gurus will go on and on about like how you should start meditating, but I think that's what it really lets you do. It lets you observe your thoughts and actually see what's going on in your mind. So next is learning to accept these feelings, but knowing that they are not us. So yeah, like I said, with meditation, we are truly able to observe these thoughts that we are feeling, but we're also able to separate ourselves. You know, we can become this observer of the mind. And I will also link down below the kind of meditation I do. I do meditate for 15 minutes in the morning and in the evening, and I feel like that really works well for me. So yeah, I'll put that below. So next is the self-binding techniques. So ways that we can actually stop ourselves from doom scrolling or spending our whole days on our phones. So yeah, specifically when it comes to social media, I feel like there is a way to limit your app use on your phone. So I think that's a great way to start. For me, I do have like a 20-minute limit on pretty much all of my social media apps. Of course, it's a little bit different for my laptop because I do have to like upload and put these videos out. But for my phone, if I do need to use social media, it's really just for like emergencies or if I'm like texting like a friend. And something you can practice is asking yourself in the moment, am I scrolling on my phone to avoid these negative feelings that I'm feeling? And that actually might help you become conscious of the bigger issue, because trust me, there's always a bigger issue. So yeah, you can practice mindful scrolling if you will. Now, let me trademark that, honestly. Just hold on, let me just quickly do some mindful scrolling. So then the last step would be to slowly phase out the bad habit. So you can start by doing the time limits on your phone, but over time, just reduce your dependency on these social media platforms. So yeah, I feel like a lot of this cheap dopamine is created by these very, very rich people who clearly understand human psychology. And to be honest, from the surface, it does seem like a little bit evil. But just like with dopamine, I feel like all evil is awaiting balance on some deep shit. More and more of these distractions will keep getting manufactured over and over again. It will bubble up and then reach its peak, and then it will go all the way down and it will repeat until the lesson is learned. And I think the lesson with social media addiction is that we have forgotten what these platforms were originally created for. Social media started off as a way to connect people and connect different cultures, people that have similar interests. And in our present world with AI and all of these like tech developments, social media is now a tool that you can use in any which way that you like. You are free to use this tool. So stop blaming big corporations and start thinking of how you can change your relationship with dopamine and help educate others. And like I said in my previous video that was about how to develop a city mindset, people make millions with just a phone and an internet connection. So why can't that be you? But really, it's up to us, Gen Z, to share this message with our peers and empower others to develop healthier dopamine habits. And listen, I will probably make another video on this in the future, but for today, that is going to be it. I feel like this is going to be my longest video yet. But I'm really proud of this. Yeah, I'm excited for more and more content and videos, so look forward to that. But I hope you guys have a great day and I'll see you in the next one.